that are out there, right? So to get started, I'm going to show you, well, let me set the stage. I've got a Tenable instance that I've scanned my lab for, and it's gone ahead and it's populated the different vulnerabilities that I have in my environment and which machines are exposed to this particular vulnerability. So one in particular I like to show is called 18405. So let's go ahead and we'll dive into this. So when I click on this particular vulnerability, I've got a lot of information available, within the tool set. So if I need to get a little bit more information about this particular vulnerability, you can click on the information right here and click on the open record. And now I've got a real good explanation that it pulled right from my vulnerability tool. It's telling me what this threat is in particular, and it gives me all the information. And then it tells me, how do I go about fixing it, right? How do you fix this threat? So the idea here is we start working through these vulnerabilities. I know what the vulnerability is. I know how to fix it. What are the processes that I have inside of my organization to then fix it? So going back here, you're going to see show the vulnerability response workflow. Sure. So think about when you've got a particular vulnerability in your organization, all the different steps that need to go through to get those fixes put in there, right? And then this can be this is one of the canned out of the box workflows that would be available. But the idea here is that you push these vulnerability fixes throughout your environment, right? And then as part of this, we could go ahead and make sure, hey, let's make sure that it actually did scan it and have it talk to your vulnerability management tool again to make sure it did just that. Now, for many organizations, right? Well, hey, this actually is probably going to be a change. So I need to create a change request at this level. So you have that ability. You can create a change, and I did so. I clicked it fast here, and then I can drill right into this particular change to see what's going on. And when I scroll down, you're going to see affected configuration items. So these are the two different devices in my environment that are applicable to this change. Okay, and then from here, it can go through your normal change request processes, and eventually, that vulnerability can be patched, or the fix can be remediated. The other things I wanted to show here, I just think it's quite slick. I can drill in to an individual vulnerable item, and when I do so, you're going to see I've got an option here, and this is part of the out-of-the-box integrations that are available. So let's say in this example, I had already patched this particular device. Like, hey, yeah, I fixed it, and as part of that response workflow, it says it's been remediated. I'm going to pop open here real quick so you can kind of see this work. So here under the scan sections of my vulnerability tool, if I go to scans and active scans, you're going to eventually see here, I'm going to trigger it here in just a little bit. I could go ahead right from the console, or it could be part of my workflow process, right? To go ahead and initiate a scan. Hey, my change request went through. Yeah, we did the fix, right? And at this point, what it's going to do is ServiceNow is now communicating to your vulnerability tool. And in just about a minute here, you're going to see a policy is going to get created, and it's going to tell it to go ahead and rescan the machine in question. Okay. Well, that goes ahead and runs, though. Let me go back to what I was showing you earlier when I was showing you the change request. You should see it here in just a minute. Yeah, it takes about a minute for it to pop in. Last step. I should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about this, but here you've got an assignment group. So you can define, different personnel that would be responsible, for this particular vulnerability, and that can be helpful if upon researching if there's different members of your team that need to be involved on a particular vulnerability. So I always like to kind of show that off as well. We were picking on earlier my data center machine, yeah. Now, when I drilled in to this particular device configuration item that was applicable for this vulnerability, here I start seeing some of the business impact that this would have on this device. This is a non-critical machine in my environment, okay? So the priority is low and it's non-critical. And Matt was saying earlier, when he was talking through some of the examples of, there's just thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities, and instead of, this allows for a lot of places to focus in. And if you've populated your CMDB out and you've mapped out your resources to say, hey, this is my business critical service, this supports the business. Yeah, this needs to be top of my list. You've now got insight into that. So you can make sure you're spending the right effort on the machines that you should to get those vulnerabilities set up. Now, I popped open my RDP session here, and now you'll see here's the ServiceNow vulnerability scan that I just went ahead and triggered, and the vulnerability I've been picking on has been 18405. So at this point, hey, ServiceNow communicated to my vulnerability scanner, and it's now going to go ahead and scan to make sure that this particular patch has been deployed. So the thing I want to say is, again, we bring those vulnerabilities into ServiceNow. We divvy the work out to the different individuals that would be responsible. We get our change requests in, and then the different tasks will then be aligned up to what your guys' process is on remediating. And the last part of this is then to be able to then, look, am I making some progress here? What's going on? So earlier I was showing you some of the dashboards with security incident response. Now I'm going to show you some of the dashboards for vulnerability. So this is all the vulnerabilities that I brought into my environment. And if you look over here on the right, I think some of the stuff is pretty slick here. So if I just wanted to really only have a picture into maybe my critical incidents, now I've got a different picture as far as what's going on in my environment. I think this is really slick. So this is showing me vulnerabilities based on the world map or geographic locations. I've seen a lot of benefit on this as far as like, hey, what regions of the world are we most vulnerable from a high level? Now earlier when I was saying like, hey, you can assign these vulnerabilities to different team members here, right? So now this is showing me a dashboard here, vulnerabilities by assignment group and by business criticality, right? So now you get to kind of see like, hey, is somebody got way too much work on their load? Can I go ahead and move things around to get other of these vulnerabilities taken up by other team members if I needed to? So it just gives you some high level insights there. This is, yeah, let me go back. I'm going to show everything here so I get a little bit more data. Yeah, what are my most vulnerable models? So in my demo environment here, I've got the most vulnerabilities here on Flash. And guys, all of these, they can be drilled into so you can see where those 399 vulnerabilities would be. Yeah, and then a trend, right? So the trend as far as open vulnerabilities, vulnerabilities that would have been remediated. So you can see, are we making a dent on the amount of vulnerabilities that are coming in?